So yes, my name is Lydia Makaroff. I am the CEO of Fight Bladder Cancer in the UK, and I am also the Vice President of the World Bladder Cancer Patient Coalition. Fight Bladder Cancer was founded by Andrew Winterbottom. So 10 years ago, he was diagnosed with bladder cancer, and then he looked around and he found that there was no patient group dedicated to bladder cancer, which is such a common story that we hear. And he said that it is absolutely critical that everyone affected by bladder cancer, patients, carers, family, and friends, have a reliable place to come to for support, information, and advice. They need to know that someone is speaking up for them when key decisions are made about policy, care, treatment, and research. And I think that this is all something that you want to do too as patient advocates. So we've grown from a small charity now into a larger charity that focuses not only on patient support, but also on research, policy change, and awareness. So today I've been asked to speak about tackling barriers to diagnosis and treatment, access challenges for novel biomarker tests and targeted therapies, and how patients are informing evidence and decision making. So my dream is that everyone who has advanced cancer has next generation sequencing. As Barry said in the previous talk, which you have not heard, but as Barry will say, it's available at major cancer centers, but not everywhere. And a lot of people seem to say it's not my problem because access to biomarker testing, it's not a drug, it's not a surgery, it's not a radiology. So it's something that tends to fall through the cracks. So what can you do as a patient advocate? Well, firstly, you can join more than one patient group. So it's fantastic that you have joined the NTrackers, but you can also join your national cancer group. You can tell them that you want to get involved and you can share your skills with them and ask them how you can contribute. You can talk to your policymakers. You can co-author policy papers with your national cancer group or with the NTrackers to demonstrate to policymakers that they will save money and improve the lives of patients if they reimburse next generation sequencing or other type of biomarker testing. You can help to inform evidence. You can sit on patient advisory boards for clinical trials. You might think that you're not experienced enough to sit on a patient advisory board for a clinical trial, but you need to remember that no one else has your insights and no one else has your lived experience. And you can share your story. There's nothing more powerful than a story, a name, and a face. And your story lets other patients and family members know that they are not alone. And you can make sure that policymakers, industries, payers, everyone is putting a face to a disease. So I think that those are the main ways that you as patient advocates can really help drive and inform this discussion to make sure that more people across the world have access to these novel biomarker tests and targeted therapies.
I can only echo everything that you said there, that's for sure. But what are the problems that we're facing now with NTRAC around the world? And I can talk more particularly from the Canadian context. And the health technology assessment bodies who are looking for certain information on the outcomes and the patient-reported outcomes from this drug and the people that are taking it. So to make a long story short, what we're looking for is, in general, and I'm not just talking about the Canadian context now, is we have phase 2 data. So we need more information. We need more information on how you're doing and how other patients are doing around the world in order to convince the bodies that approve these drugs and to reimburse these drugs across the world, actually. And it's a real slug because it's an expensive drug, and unlike the United States where insurance may cover it, in countries where there's public funding, it has to go through this HTA process, as I mentioned, and it's very challenging in order to get that through. You have to prove that it's cost effective, and you have to prove that obviously there's an unmet need, which I believe there is. And the challenge here is that it's not like in the past, the old tools, people would approve drugs, for example, for breast cancer or colon cancer or thyroid cancer or bladder cancer. No, this is a drug where you've got 1% of colon cancer, 0.5% of lung cancer, 90% in cases of salivary gland, and high incidence 30 to 40% in thyroid, and then a bunch of other smaller ones along the way. And we heard about a pancreatic case today, and amazing. how more amazing could it get? So when we try to convince these authorities that this isn't a drug, this is a tumor agnostic drug. In other words, it doesn't matter if you have breast or colon or whatever. This becomes a challenge because they're not used to approving drugs on that basis, and they require phase 3 data, which is of course much harder to get. And how these are done, just to be a little bit technical for one second, is they use basket trials. In other words, trials that include patients from all these different cancer sites, but who are NTRK positive. And it'll take 20
Barry,
years.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but Barry, I've been told that if you have slides to share, you should be able to do that now.
I don't have any more slides than I showed before. I'm happy to re-show slides if you want some pictures, but I think I'd rather save some time for the conversation.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. Yep.
No, not at all. Thank you for that. So I think it's really important that we continue to share our information, to continue to document the information, both formally and informally. And that's, you know, one of the reasons we do the work that we're doing in Canada, because we submit it to these health technology assessment bodies, and we are ready to share it with other countries, that information too. It's all done, of course, anonymously. We don't mention any names. It's patient one, and this is what they have to say. So, you know, it's really in the aggregate data and anonymous that we share this information to convince other bodies around the world. Because, for example, you know how many, I don't even know how many NTRK patients there are in Canada, but maybe a dozen, you know. We have to find them, we have to speak to them if they're willing to do so. And that's why, Susan, your group is so amazing, because it's an obvious, fantastic resource for the patients, but it's also an opportunity to take from that group both the benefits that people have, the risks that they have, the problems in some cases that they have, and really the quality of life issues, because that's what they want from us at these health technology assessment bodies. And I know, I wish I could actually go and speak to them and show them Susan and Keith and all of you, because that would be so impactful. But of course, we have to do it in writing, and that's somewhat less impactful, unfortunately, but that's what we're stuck with for now. So being an advocate in this area means many things. Of course, self-advocacy, so that you can get well and be treated. That's perhaps maybe the number one thing right now for everybody. And the second thing is, how can we help others? And how can we make sure that this unmet need around the world can be met? I'll just tell you something. I just held a precision medicine meeting last week. I was going to say in Montreal, but it was from all over the world, like today. So it was an international meeting with speakers from all over the world. And the first speaker that we had was someone from the FDA and Health Canada. We had the similar person in the Canadian side on something called Project Orbis. And this would be a wonderful thing. For this drug, what Project Orbis is that when a drug gets approved for regulatory purposes, meaning for safety and efficacy, in the US, it simultaneously is approved in Canada, Australia, Singapore, Brazil, and I think the UK is now part of it as of this week or last week. And so you get this ability to have access from a regulatory perspective, approval of a drug simultaneously. Wouldn't this be wonderful if we had this for larotrectinib and patients could benefit all over the world from it? So that's something to advocate for in the greater context. The most immediate context, of course, is to get people screened, get their biomarker, find out that they're NTRK positive. MSI high is probably a good indicator to look for patients like that, for individuals like that, and then get them the information as soon as possible. So just to tell you, whenever I speak to patients, and in our organization we speak to patients and we list the biomarkers, NTRK is now one of them. We look for colon cancer, the standard ones that we look for, and NTRK is there as well, so that we can hit. And as it happens, we hit one in Toronto who is being treated and who has this patient who I haven't spoken to her, but I've spoken to her physician. I've seen the CT scans. It went from a liver that was full of tumor to no evidence of disease. unbelievable. This is at Princess Margaret in Toronto. So it is possible. And that's what inspires me, right? I mean, I'm not an NFRECer. I am an advocate, colorectal cancer advocate first and foremost, but also that's not what it is anymore. And I'll just leave you this one philosophy. I don't believe we're going to be treating colon, breast, bladder, all these different types of cancers in the future. We're going to be treating the mutations exactly like larotrectinib does. And that's why larotrectinib, being one of these first tumor agnostic drugs, is so important to see approved, because there's so many more like these coming down the pipeline for all different types of mutations. So I'll leave it with that.